Hello. Now we are moving along, still in Spectacles. This is episode 3. Now we are on Sheila Birling. So I'm going to go through some of these quotes. So the first quote is, "Oh, how horrible." This generally shocked reaction shows that Sheila is very empathetic and very surprised at the thing, whereas many other characters, such as Mr. Birling and Mrs. Birling, are kind of dismissive. They like to separate themselves from the actual problem instead of thinking of how it must feel to go through what Eva Smith's gone through. It's horrible. Her shock just indicates that she understands, well, she doesn't understand what it's like, but she understands how bad it must be for someone to feel like that. She understands other people's feelings and can link to them, unlike the other two who don't particularly care. Number 28 here, "You talk as if we were responsible." In this, Sheila isn't like the others. She's not saying we were not responsible. She's still open to the ideas. She's open to the ideas of the future, which again shows her as the younger generation. She's open to other viewpoints than her own. She's not that arrogant. She refuses to listen to other people. And this next, number 29, "So I'm really responsible." She begins to question herself because of what she's been told. And this isn't really just questioning whether she was responsible or not. This is questioning whether her parents are right. Were they right to say that it had nothing to do with them, or was it all really linked together? Is the inspector right? She's kind of thinking between who is right, who should I agree with. "He hasn't started on you yet." This was said by Sheila to Mrs. Birling, who's her mother. She's basically saying that the inspector hasn't got round to her yet. She can't understand the inspector's methods, how he gets information out of people. She almost challenges Mrs. Birling to the idea that maybe she is not the invincible, really powerful person, and maybe this man has the power right now. Maybe he should be the one we're listening to. Okay, so this here, number 31, which is in the third act, is one of the most important quotes from Sheila. It says, "But now you're behaving as if nothing much has happened." This is directed towards Mr. and Mrs. Birling, and Gerald to a, well, not really Gerald at all, because they are the older generation. Gerald is sort of in between Sheila and Eric, but we'll get onto that at the end. So basically, Sheila is saying that Mr. and Mrs. Birling, just because they believe he is a real police inspector, aren't listening to his message at all, and they haven't changed in any way from the beginning. They're pretending that nothing's happened because they know no charges have been brought against them. They think, this doesn't affect us, this doesn't affect us. That's all they've been saying throughout the entire play. We shouldn't be responsible for them. Any of their problems are not our fault. It's showing the ignorance of the higher classes and the older generation, that they're not open to the fact that there are lessons to be learned from your actions. So the next quote we got here is number 32. "The point is, you don't seem to have learnt anything." That is another thing that Sheila says to Mr. and Mrs. Birling. It's got a very similar point there. They didn't learn anything from the encounter, whereas Sheila and Eric and Gerald, it changed them as people and gave them a new perspective on life and responsibility. This bit, "He never seemed like an ordinary police inspector." It shows that despite being considered a child and being pushed around a lot of the play and told what to do, Sheila actually has quite a lot of intelligence, because she figured out that he wasn't very much like an ordinary police inspector. She was the only person who found this out. Well, her and Gerald, I guess. And Mr. Birling said he was a crank, but that didn't really have anything to do with it. Actually, that wasn't the bit that Mr. Birling was saying. I was wrong. But Gerald and Sheila were, all in all, the only people who managed to figure out he wasn't an inspector. He never seemed like an ordinary police inspector. So, despite being a child and a woman in the time who would be considered less intelligent, she was a lot more intelligent than a lot of the characters. Also, the idea of an ordinary police inspector, it may be because like an ordinary police inspector would have been really nice to them just because of their status, just because they were upper class people, they were the Birlings, these are the people you got to respect, you got to treat differently than everyone else because of their money. Maybe that's why I never seemed like an ordinary inspector, because he wasn't constantly trying to do whatever they wanted. He was treating them as he treated everyone else, which is another socialist principle, treat everyone the same. And our next point is, I suppose we're all nice people now. Which, in a way, is slightly ironic, because that's the complete opposite of what Mr. and Mrs. Birling are. I mean, you can even tell from the opening descriptions of them. Hard-headed and cold. They don't sound like very nice people, do they? And they show throughout the play that they have done some bad things and don't feel any repentance at all, unlike the other three, which shows that they're not nice people, but Sheila still wants to believe in them. Sheila still wants to think that maybe they can change like she did, and that's why she's just such a great character, because she retains hope in other members of her family to change, even though they won't and probably can't. So 35, everything we said had happened. So everything that happened there was real. It happened. We should pay attention to everything that happens and try and change what we think according to it. We shouldn't just make up our mind on one thing and go, oh no, I don't think that's true, or I think that's true, I think this. You should always learn from your experiences. Even if it hadn't happened, what if it had? What difference does it make if it really happened or not? You still learn from your experiences, and that's what Sheila's trying to get across. The next spot here is 36. It frightens me the way you talk. And Sheila says this about... It's after Mr. Birling was imitating the inspector and saying that... oh, the look on all your faces when he said that. It was really thingy. It was really like you actually listen to what he said. How stupid. And then Sheila's like saying, it frightens me the way you talk. It frightens me how you aren't open to these new ideas. You aren't listening to the truth, I guess. You aren't listening to what other people have to say. You only have your own viewpoints and are blocking out everyone else's, which isn't a very good way to live. You never change, you never learn from your mistakes. And that's what separates Sheila and Eric and Gerald from the older generation. They all are considered rounded characters. They all change throughout the play, and because of it, become a lot better people. So there we go. That was Sheila Birling, episode 3 of the revision of An Inspector Calls English. Goodbye.